Does Donald Trump appear anywhere in the Epstein files?
I didn't say it was a complicated question. I just didn't hear you, so my apologies. We have released where President Trump's name's in the Epstein files and everybody else, and all credible information that we are legally allowed to release has been released.
All right, so let's go through that. You're referring to court orders that prohibit you from releasing grand jury testimony under Rule 6E.
3 minutes ago, something was done in Washington that no one had dared to do. Dan Goldman didn't whisper it. He didn't imply it behind closed doors. He didn't leak it to a journalist. He stood up, opened a folder, and asked, live on television with the cameras rolling, the question that no one in that chamber had been able to say out loud for years, directly to FBI Director Kash Patel's face. Director Patel, does Donald Trump appear anywhere in the Epstein files? A brief silence filled the room. Patel lifted his head. I'm sorry, could you repeat that? He said. Goldman stood by his question. The question isn't complicated, he said. Does Donald Trump appear anywhere in the Epstein files? This time Patel couldn't deny that he heard it, but he still couldn't answer it. That was the moment everything changed. For the first time, the FBI director, who for roughly 11 months had been telling Congress and the American people the same things, fell completely silent. There's nothing to hide. The files are being handled transparently. The FBI is cooperating with all requests. But when that name was asked, not a single word came out of his mouth. And the reason for that silence was a name everyone knew, but no one had dared to say out loud in that room until today. If you're still watching at this point, subscribe, because what happens at the end is something rarely seen in congressional history. This wasn't just about today. This was the overflow of months of activity behind closed doors, finally spilling into the open. There were documents the American people had been promised would be released, the Epstein files. But those files never seemed to be released, and the question Goldman asked was very simple. Why? The hearing held that day by the Senate Intelligence Committee appeared routine. Budget, personnel, standard oversight. That's exactly how Dan Goldman wanted it. If Patel had known this question was coming, if he'd coordinated with his lawyers, if he'd had even a single minute to speak with the White House, none of what followed would have happened. But this wasn't a staged surprise. It was a trap. A trap built step by step, wrapped in documents over months. And Kash Patel walked straight into it without even realizing it. The room looked calm. Wood-paneled walls, a polished table. Patel at the witness stand. 3 lawyers behind him. 2 advisors at his side. Shoulders back. Chin up. He projected the image of a man accustomed to these hearings. Comfortable, prepared, unconcerned. Goldman sat across from him. Calm, quiet, almost friendly. Nothing about his demeanor suggested that what was about to happen would shake careers, strain institutions, and ignite an issue that had been suppressed for years. The first half hour went exactly as expected. Cyber threats were discussed. Foreign interference was addressed. Then Goldman turned to the Epstein documents. The documents your office told this committee would be released on the 14th, he said. The documents held by the FBI for 6 years. The documents the American people have been waiting more than a decade to see. After a brief pause. Where are they, Director Patel? Patel's jaw tightened. A tiny muscle movement, but one the cameras didn't miss. He gave the FBI's standard response. Within legal limits and national security considerations. Goldman shook his head dismissively. That's not what I asked, he said. I asked where they are. At that moment, Patel hesitated, just half a second. But that half second decided everything. Goldman pulled out a single-page document and held it up to the cameras. "This," he said, pointing to it, "is an internal FBI memo dated October 3rd, sent from your office to the Classification Review Board. The memo requested delaying the public release of all Epstein-related files." Lawyers behind Patel began to stir. Someone leaned toward him. Patel didn't look. "A standard review process," he said. Goldman let the answer hang for 3 seconds. Then he placed a second document on the table. "This," he said, again indicating the paper, "is the committee's official letter sent to your office on September 12th. It was clear and unambiguous. The Epstein documents will be released on schedule." When the third document appeared, the atmosphere in the room changed. This one wasn't from the FBI. It was a timeline prepared by Goldman's office. It listed 47 documents scheduled for release over the past 4 months. Goldman asked, "How many of these were actually released to the public?" Patel looked at his lawyers, but this time none had an answer to give him. "I'd need to review the details," he said. Goldman slowly shook his head. "The answer is 11, he said. "Out of 47 documents, only 11 were released. The remaining 36 were delayed, reclassified, or quietly removed from the release schedule altogether." He leaned toward Patel. "That's not a delay, Director Patel." Then came the truly explosive point. Goldman didn't just know the numbers, he knew the reason. Because all 36 of those documents shared one common name, a name that had appeared again and again in Epstein-related documents since the 1990s. Goldman didn't say it immediately, because saying that name, live, in Congress with cameras rolling, wouldn't just make headlines, it would make history. If you've made it this far, don't forget to like and share the video. This conversation needs to be heard by everyone. Goldman explained the context. The Epstein files had been released in stages: flight logs, witness testimony, internal FBI correspondence, and certain names kept reappearing. Goldman knew the files. He also knew what Patel was trying to keep out of public view. Then he pointed to a specific entry on the timeline. "Document 23, he said, "approved on September 5th. Passed all legal reviews. Scheduled for public release on September 19th. He looked at Patel. "It was never released. Why?" And that was the information that changed everything. Document 23 wasn't an ordinary file. It was a witness statement related to Epstein's Palm Beach property, and the name in that testimony had been kept sealed for months. Donald Trump. One thing needs to be made clear. Donald Trump has not been charged with any crime related to Epstein. He has denied the allegations. He has said he had no knowledge of Epstein's criminal activities. But the document showed the following: flights taken on Epstein's private jet between 1993 and 1996, a 2020 Internal Department of Justice memo, records indicating Trump flew on Epstein's jet more times than previously reported. And Patel couldn't answer the question. Patel's silence, in fact, told everyone everything.
If you want to see what happens next, subscribe now. The documents are released tomorrow. And this story does not end here.